Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about how you can sense auras. Now auras is something that it seems like everyone, when you're kind of like getting into this, really wants to understand and wants to learn about. And if you're interested in developing your psychic skills and your psychic abilities, definitely subscribe. My channel here is dedicated to teaching you about how to strengthen and empower you to trust your psychic skills. So let's get into exactly what auras are. I haven't honestly done the research behind all the scientific stuff behind auras. A lot of people will tell you that you can capture it on camera and stuff like that, and I'm not 100% sure on if that's a thing or not, but I'm going to tell you about what you can do if you want to receive auras psychically. Now auras are, in theory, kind of the energy that surrounds us. Supposedly with this energy, you can tell a lot of things about a person from their aura. And, they call it their auric field. And auras supposedly have different colors, they have different shapes, and usually what you do is you tap into somebody's aura to pick up information about them. So in theory, we all have this kind of like bubble around us, and it holds information. It might hold past lives, it might hold spirits, it might hold information about our personality, just anything about us as a person. It could be our energy, how we're feeling that day, how closed off we are, how open we are. So basically, there's a lot of psychics out there that will come at a reading from a place of reading someone's aura first. Now, this information that I'm talking about, it's psychic information. It's not necessarily something that can be measured, or like if you took a photo of your aura, this stuff would just perfectly pop out on a picture. This is more like if you're tuning into someone's energy and you want to find out more about them with their permission, then you'll pick up information about them. And some of this information can come across as symbolic, some of it could be literal. Again, some of it could be about their health, their day-to-day life. It could be mundane little things about them, or it could be something bigger. You could pick up past lives. You could pick up other people's energy. You could pick up spirits. The aura can be big. The aura can be small, depending on how open or closed someone is. And it could have just mundane, everyday things in it, or it can have larger, mystical implications or information about somebody's life. So basically, our auras are a reflection of what's inside of us, both mentally, physically, spiritually. And psychics a lot of the times like to connect with other people's auras, and it's just a good starting place for them to pick up information. Now, this isn't the only way that you can read somebody. Honestly, I don't use this way, but some people really connect with using auras, and you can absolutely do this if it works for you. One of the misconceptions that I see with auras is that sometimes people think that it is purely a clairvoyant exercise. Now, I kind of look at auras as using all of your clairs. And if you're new here, check out some of my videos on the clairs. Clairs are how you receive psychic information, and there's 6 of them. So you really have to understand kind of how you receive psychic information. But auras tend to be very clairvoyant, which is using kind of your psychic eyesight, your psychic mind's eye. And so it can be clairvoyant, but it also can be any of the other clairs. So just keep that in mind with all of these exercises that I'm about to give you. So I'm going to talk about 2 things before we jump into how you can actually read clairs. And the first thing is colors, and then the second thing is just kind of some stuff about medical intuition. So with auras, you're going to probably see colors, and if you don't stress out about it. We'll talk about that in a second, but usually what sensing auras is it's about trying to figure out what colors are around people. But the thing is you have to have an assigned meaning for colors to begin with. And if you don't have an assigned meaning to a color, what you can always do is in the moment, if you're seeing purple around a person, you can ask the purple, the color, hey, what do you represent? What are you about? But I just want to give some general themes to what each of the colors are, just in case you don't have a basis of what a color could possibly mean. And the big thing here is that have or keep what resonates to you. So if you feel like red really represents this, keep that color. Don't let anybody else come in and tell you, oh no, change it. You can change like what your representation of colors are, but the thing is your guides communicate to you in your symbols, in your language, and they're going to use colors and information that's going to click with you really quickly. And so if you've already had an assigned meaning, if you think green and you think, oh, nature, being outside, and they want to communicate something about going outside, they're going to communicate with that color green. Again, this can change. You can tell your guides to use different colors. With any sort of like symbols or information that comes through, know how to interpret it using your symbolism and your language. And I have another video on this if it's kind of confusing, so check that out in the card above. So let's start with black. Black is your typical like dark, shadow aspect, anything negative. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that's always the case for black, but usually that tends to be what it's about. Now the color blue can sometimes give a sense of calm. Maybe it's very like water related, emotions related is something I personally relate it to. Blue can also be like the throat chakra, and these colors can correspond with the chakras, but if you decide you have another meaning, like for example the heart chakra is pink, the heart chakra is green, but I just don't associate like green with heart. I always associate pink with the heart. So you can kind of decide again how you want these colors to have meaning in your readings. Brown can kind of be like earthy, maybe a little bit more like practical. Honestly, when I see brown, I see it as like muddy, like stagnant energy. I often see it as like just like stagnation as in general. Gold is often associated with like wealth or wisdom or angels. Honestly, I see it as protection. I also sort of see white in this same category. White is a lot about purity. White is technically all the colors combined sort of on the light spectrum. So you could, in theory, it could be something about all the colors coming together, maybe a full integration of something in someone's life. That could be, what white represents. Green again is often associated with the heart chakra. I associate it with nature. Sometimes some people see it as being like very fresh and very new, but green could also have the connotation of like, sickness. So again, it's like you have to kind of decide what it means to you. And what I would recommend is to stop after you get through this section, just press pause, write out all the colors and write what you associate those colors with right now. Indigo is like your third eye chakra. It is spirituality, intuition. That's usually what that is so associated with. Honestly, I can never remember the difference between indigo and purple, so this kind of blends together for me. I'm sort of basing these colors off of the chakra system because that's just what a lot of people tend to do. And so it's helpful because if you don't already have assigned meanings to these colors using the chakra system, you'll just find it's easier to communicate with a lot of people. So orange is your sacral chakra. Creativity, confidence. When I think of orange, I think of the sun. I think of just like bright happiness, celebration. Pink could also be a love. It could be immaturity. It could be heart chakra. It could be anything, honestly. I see pink as very like a young energy as well. Red is the root chakra, so that's kind of like our base chakra. This is often associated with like power, security, home life, sexuality sometimes. It's kind of like your core and your base. But red could also be associated with like anger or aggression or even like blood in a sense, and not like in a like morbid way, but just like thinking about life and like if once we get into like the medical side of this, thinking about how it relates to the body. Now violet is technically your crown chakra. Again, I get indigo, violet, and purple all sorts of mixed up. So I kind of have different symbols that I communicate with my guides because for some reason my brain just doesn't remember them. So don't beat yourself up if you have the same problem. That violet energy is going to be kind of like connecting to a higher source. What is your connection to spirit, whether it's God or whatever you believe in. And so maybe if somebody has like a very violet aura around them, maybe they're very connected to their guides or that higher source that they believe in. Yellow is your solar plexus. This is like confidence, happiness. I also associate this one with sunshine, vitality, joy. And so those are kind of like, very briefly, some of the things I associate with those colors. Now, I don't want you guys to get necessarily hung up on them because, again, your guides can communicate to you through different colors. And there's a lot of colors that I'm also leaving out, like silver, and stuff like that. And then to know that with auras, you might not always see colors. You might see density. You might see vibration. And those are all valid too, and they all are going to have their own representation as well, which we'll get into in a second. For example, you might see symbols in somebody's aura. And so, you know, when we think of auras, sometimes we're like, oh, we're just looking at colors. But sometimes if you're using your psychic ability and you're tuning into somebody and you are trying to ask a question, like, who is this person? What are they about? Like, what's their personality like? Is there any information from them? Your guides are going to communicate to you, not just through colors, but through symbols as well. And so don't block those out because they might be important to whatever you're trying to read. So you might be looking at somebody's aura and you might see a dog. And this dog could be, again, symbolic or literal. I have a video on kind of how to understand the differences. But if you see a dog, it could be that, you know, they literally have a past pet that's with them, around them. Or it could be that a dog is a symbol for playfulness, and maybe they need to be more playful in their life. And that's like the message that's coming through. Now, for those of you who are learning about auras and wanting to sort of integrate it into like a medical, intuitive sort of way, know that this video is not going to be for that, but in my medical intuition course, I am going to cover it. Coming from medical intuition, you really have to have a very different approach to it with a lot of other things to learn first, like about ethics. Basically, the idea here is that we don't want to get into diagnosing anybody. So if you start to pick up on things that are medical related in someone's aura, that's okay if you get that. But the important thing is, if you aren't familiar with medical intuition, you really shouldn't be getting into telling people about what's going on in their body. We want to leave that to doctors. We want to leave that to the professionals. Now, if that is something you want to learn, again, check out the video that I'm going to have on that, as well as my full course. So let's jump into seeing auras. Now, the first thing that you always have to do before you do any type of intuitive work, I don't care what you're doing, automatic writing, meditating, blah, 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 you have to protect yourself. And I have a video on this. I have a video on the basics of protection. Obviously, if you're struggling with this, go to my psychic course. I give way more tips and exercises. But I always sort of skip over this in my videos because I don't want to waste 2/3 of my video going over the same thing every single time. So this is about making sure that you are safe, you're protected, you're talking to the right beings of your highest and best good. You know, even though you're reading somebody's aura, you might be getting input from your spiritual team, your guides, your helpers. But like, for example, if you're reading somebody's aura and they have like a spirit attached to them, and attached, I use that term loosely because they don't always have to be there. They're not stuck there. You can get rid of them. But you don't want to be talking to that negative spirit who might not have that client's best interests at heart. So assuming you've done that, you've protected yourself, you set your boundaries, you make sure that you're talking to somebody for your highest and best good, then you can go into reading someone's aura. Now, I would start with reading someone else before you try yourself. And remember here too to ask permission. I think it's one thing if you live with somebody and you're comfortable, but if you're walking around and you're just like staring at someone in public and you're like trying to like pick up their energy, like, we don't want to violate other people's privacy. That energy is theirs. Also, the thing is when you get permission from people to read their auras, honestly, it makes it a lot easier to read because you have permission. People are a lot more open, and it makes it so that you can read people's energy a lot better. Now, I know that's hard because not everyone in your life probably will let you read their auras. You can sort of walk around and just get a color here and there. But what I mean is, like, don't dive deep into it and try to like figure out everything about that person like while you're in the grocery store. That's just a violation of someone else's energy, and I'm all about good ethics here on my channel. We don't want to walk in and just read people willy-nilly. So this first exercise, this is probably what I would recommend practicing the most with, and this is just a clairvoyant technique. And so this is looking at someone, letting your eyes lose focus a little bit, and then connecting with their energy and expecting to see colors. You have to expect that it's going to happen. And again, I go over this a lot more in all of my Claire's videos on my psychic course. It's very much about like how do you receive clairvoyant information. But one of the easiest ways is just to expect that information is going to come to you. Another thing you can do is sort of like as you're looking at the person, kind of let your eyes lose focus and like zone out kind of as you're looking at them. Like kind of let the image get a little bit blurry. And sometimes that helps, sometimes that's a little bit harder. And you guys can even practice this a little bit with me right now. And honestly, it might help because I have a white background around me. But you can even like look in a mirror, do this with yourself, kind of let your eyes lose focus, maybe even pay attention to your peripherals and see if you see any colors around somebody. And you might get a hit right away and trust that. But if you're struggling and nothing is coming through, don't get mad at yourself. Clairvoyance, it's a clair, and if you haven't been practicing your clairs like at all, sometimes you're just not going to pick anything up, and that's okay. The thing with the psychic abilities, you just have to keep practicing. So try other clairvoyant techniques and exercises if you are struggling with actually seeing. Now, to know, you're not actually going to see it in front of you, like as you're seeing like me right now. It's going to be in your mind's eye. I kind of think of it like an overlay or a superimposition. It's like you see it in your head and it's kind of around that person. So just know with some of this stuff, it's not that you're actually literally seeing it in front of you. Sometimes it might be so clear that you might think it is, but it's just more in your mind's eye. That's your psychic sense. That's the clairvoyance. It's in your mind, not necessarily in front of you physically like anyone else in this reality. One other clairvoyant tip that I can give is if you're still struggling, try breathing with your third eye. And when I say that, like imagine that you have breath that comes in and out through your third eye. And sometimes this just kind of like activates your clairvoyance, your psychic seeing. So this is just another technique that you can try. But again, remember that if you are not having it work now or when you actually try to do it, make sure to practice outside of it. The more you practice your clairvoyance outside of actually trying to like make it work, the more reliable it will become. And then you might come back to it and get very clairvoyant hits later. And the next tip I have is to try using any other clair. So if you're struggling with clairvoyance, try clairaudience. Try to ask, what color is their aura? And you can expect to hear it. You can expect a thought, and you might hear the word red, and you can ask, where is red on their aura? And you might see that it's like around their head or something. You can also use clairsentience. You can try to feel the colors, feel the things in their energy. This is honestly what I use most for some reason. And you can pick up on, again, density. You can pick up on heat. You can pick up on cold. You can pick up on you could even feel the colors, like maybe you just know that blue feels a certain way. Again, you might have to set those ahead of time, or as you're reading auras more and more, you might decide, oh, okay, this sensation means that they're really closed off or something. And then you constantly associate that with every person that you feel that sensation with moving forward. So it's a process of discovery, of learning your own symbols and how your guides communicate to you. You can even use clairgustance and clairalience to figure out what someone's aura is. And this could be that you associate like a certain taste or a certain smell with something else, or you could literally smell or taste different things around them. Like one of the times I read someone else, like I smelled like flowers around them and they had just like been to like an orchard or something, I can't remember. Claircognizance is the last clair, and this will often be like a very clear, fast download. Like you know exactly what color their aura is, or like what is in their aura. And gosh dang it, I keep thinking of like more ideas as I'm talking, and I just have to write it down or else I won't remember to say all this. One of my favorite exercises that I did when I was learning how to read clairs was when I was back in the Aspen program for psychic development, which is where I learned and I coached. My teacher basically, she had us get in two different lines, and one line stayed still and then the other line had to move every 30 seconds. And the line that moved, you had to read the person in front of you. And so I had to get in front of a new person and be like, I see brown in your energy and blah, blah, blah. And then she would blow the whistle and we'd have to move to the next person. I see blue in your energy, blah, blah, blah. And you have to like describe like why you're feeling it, or like what that color means. Because that's another thing, is when you're describing an aura to somebody, don't just tell them what the color is, tell them what it means. Because they might see blue very differently than you see blue. So you have to explain why you're seeing those colors, what it means to you, because again, different symbols can mean different things to different people. But I love that claircognizant exercise because it forced me to not get into my analytical mind to be like, oh, am I doing this wrong? Am I not getting it correctly? And sometimes forcing yourself to go fast actually really helps. And my guides are putting this in my head. Like, you can even just like look up people's faces on the internet and just really fast go through each. Blue, purple, blue. Now I will get into how to analyze like the information you get here in a second, but I just want to give you all the exercises that you can do so that you can try them out and see what works best. And so the next exercise, besides, okay, you've tried that clairvoyant technique, you've tried maybe using all of your clairs, and then this is another way to do it, and that is to use automatic drawing. Now I've done a video on that, so watch that one for instructions if you haven't ever tried automatic drawing. But this is basically creating an outline of a person on a paper and then looking at your partner and then drawing their aura. And honestly, you can do this for yourself too. You can do this for a pet. And so I brought some old artwork that I did. So this is my cat that I drew like forever ago, and I drew his aura. Now I will say, your aura is not usually just one color. Sometimes there's like several colors in it, and I'll get into that in a second, and like the placement of it and what it means. But I drew my cat's aura, and I was also seeing like trees. Like, it's okay to see other things other than colors. There can be symbols in it. Now, I didn't write down what any of this meant, so I can't interpret it now, but now I know better. Now this one, I can't remember if I did this for somebody else or they did it for me. But this is just another way to do it where, you could set the center as like their core, and then you can draw all the different, I'm holding this to the side because my light is like a glare, but you can draw the different like colors and the layers, because sometimes you'll see auras have different layers to them. And so I think this was somebody else that I drew. I can't remember. Now this is one that someone drew of me, and I know the picture, like, make your dumb comments and get out, and I think the technique here was that we were supposed to draw the core and then like, all the other things that we got around it. And so someone found a guardian angel around me. They were feeling like very yellow up here, and yellow to them, because they wrote it down, meant smart and energetic. They saw a dog around me. Now I didn't have a dog at this time. Australian cattle dog, energy to your right in the future. Which is kind of funny because I was trying to decide between a husky and a Australian cattle dog, but I ended up going with a husky. So another thing of like showing that the future can always change. But then they wrote down like the green that they were seeing was very good shielding, like my energy was being very protective. And it's interesting how they drew these like lines and like how they saw the energy coming out. Everyone's gonna see things differently, but they said these blue things, I was vocal and I'm leaving lines of communication open. So that was a very cool thing that someone else drew for me. And this is something you can do, is you can totally like make auras as gifts to other people. My mother-in-law actually draws aura shirts, and she paints people's auras on jackets. And that's something that she's really good at sensing. And that's like just one of her ways of how she uses her intuition to sense people's energy. And then this is the last one I brought. And this one was one of me that I drew. And again, I'll start with kind of like this black outline. Like, you don't even need to like fully draw like a person. It can just be an outline in general. And then you can draw whatever you get. And I was getting the ocean, looks like maybe grass. This was definitely like a guide of mine. But I didn't write anything down, so I can't interpret it now. But a cool little painting that I have of myself. Another thing you can do is automatic writing. Now, automatic writing is very similar to automatic drawing, but you can write out what you see in someone's aura. And, just go through that video that I made and do it with the prompt of like, my aura looks like ... And again, those first couple sentences might be more in that left brain, that analytical mind, but once you get flowing, you might end up writing things about your aura that you didn't know. So it doesn't always have to be so like creative or artistic or colorful. Just find what works best for you. The last thing that I say is just to use your imagination. Just pretend. Look at someone, say what color is their aura, and just make it up. Because more often than not, when we are making things up, when we are using our imagination, that's actually us using our intuition. And sometimes when we're so stuck in our left brain and trying to like figure things out and search for things, and we're like grinding, like that's the energy that I'm trying to like express. It's like when we're trying to get intuitive information that we're actually like blocking ourselves. Sometimes it just helps to like use your imagination, to pretend. That's just another way that you can use your intuition to connect and sense auras that kind of gets you, again, out of that left brain mind. So let's jump into analyzing what you get. Okay, so again, we've already talked a little bit about the colors and understanding that different colors can mean different things. So whether you're reading someone else or reading yourself, remember to write down what it means to you in that moment, because things can change over time. Like your idea of what a color might be might change in 10 years. And like now I'm looking at this and I don't know what it means. And if you aren't sure what a color means, stop and ask the energy, the aura, ask, what does this color mean? Like, what does this represent? Also know, again, that you are not always going to see colors. There might be density. Now, this is something I see a lot in other people's like energy, especially like, this is how I decide if like somebody is like passed on in a good way or if they're still like stuck like spirits. And when I sense that they're like stuck, they kind of have this dense gray energy that kind of like has a low like pulse, versus when I connect with somebody who's passed for a long time, maybe not even long, but they passed peacefully and they're really like crossed over, I see it as very light energy. Like there's not that density there that's like weighing them down to earth. It's like they're up higher, they're lighter, if that makes sense. So understand that you could pick up density, you could pick up vibration. I'm sure you could pick up other things that I'm not even listing here. And that's the hard thing, is like I can't tell you what everyone's aura is going to mean. You just have to remember to stop in every single moment and ask the energy, what does this mean? Or ask your guides, why am I picking this up? And the best time to do that is to do it while you're in the moment. And try not to use your analytical mind here. I talk about that in my video about how to go deeper with information. Sometimes we'll get one piece of information, like we see red, and then we use our analytical mind of like, oh, red means anger, but it might not actually mean anger. So you really have to understand, again, how your guides communicate to you, the symbols that you're using. And I don't want to go over that again in this video, but I have other videos on that and I'll link it down below. And this goes for symbols as well. If you see a symbol like a beach ball in somebody's aura, don't assume. Ask the beach ball, what do you mean? Maybe it means, go have some fun, or maybe it means you're spinning in circles. So you have to stop and kind of train yourself to always go back intuitively and ask what it means. Now with the symbols and the colors, it sort of matters like where they are in relation to the body. So if you're seeing red around the head, it might have a different meaning than red around your feet. And so you also have to go into like, okay, well, what do I associate the head with? What do I associate feet with? And maybe it's that you associate it with the chakras. And so, when you see red around that base chakra, that emotion of anger might be around this chakra, which is about security, home life, stability. And so maybe you say something to the effect of like, oh, well, I feel like you're angry or you're upset in life with, the things that you have or you don't have. So that's like one way of interpreting it. Now, this isn't always the case. It's not necessarily so 2D. Sometimes it can be, again, like layers of an onion. And so that's why, again, it's like I can't tell you everything, everyone's auras. You just have to ask in the moment and just pay attention to where it's related to physical things in the body. And then when you start getting into medical things, like if you feel like, okay, I'm seeing a lot of black energy around their stomach, I feel like this is not symbolic, I feel like this is medical. Again, get into like medical intuition and learning that. Otherwise, you can say something like, I'm feeling this darker energy around your stomach. It doesn't always feel good, so maybe just pay attention to that, eat healthy or something like that. And again, you don't want to diagnose or necessarily prescribe. Like, I wouldn't even go that far. Always refer to somebody else when it comes to medical stuff. You can give them like what you're getting, but it's very important to communicate that you are not a medical professional. Now just remember that auras can be reflective of your physical self, your mental self, or your spiritual self. So when you're kind of getting this information too, if you aren't sure, like ask, is this something like spiritually? Is this something like physically in the body that needs to be paid attention to? Or is this like a mental like energy, like a mood or emotion that they have? And so you kind of have to separate between those three and not just assume that everything is physical or everything is a mental emotion that's going on. Another big one that I don't think people remember is that auras change within time. So if somebody read you like 4 years ago and you had very pink aura energy, that doesn't always mean that you have that same energy today. Your aura can change day by day, hour by hour, depending on your mood, depending on how you're feeling, depending on where you're at in life. So just keep that in mind, because I think that some people read auras and they think they're stuck with one forever, but it can honestly change throughout the day. The last thing that you might encounter with kind of like analyzing someone's aura is you might feel like there's other spirits there. Now, this can be other people that are living. So I think this can happen two ways. Like the person that you're reading could be thinking about them a lot, or they could have like very like wide open boundaries and they don't know how to get rid of that other person's energy. A lot of people sometimes interpret this as psychic attacks. I sort of believe that you set your own bubble, and if your bubble is set and you set the intention that nobody can come into it, then I think you can kind of ward those off easily. But it's different if you are letting things like that come into your energy. And I'll talk about cleansing auras here in a second. But another thing that you can see sometimes is deceased relatives, ancestors, guides. And if you're a psychic, you can try to pick up on the guides. If you've learned a little bit about animal communication, you can maybe pick up on, is this a current animal? Is this a past animal? You can try to kind of talk to it. Now, the hard thing here is understanding if they are really in your energy or if it's a symbol. Like there's a difference between, okay, someone is in my energy because I'm constantly thinking about them and I have conflict with them. But then it's another thing if your guides are just giving you like a flash of information to go further with. Like they might not actually be in your energy. And so again, you can just ask in the moment. Now with spirits, that kind of gets into a different territory, and make sure that you learn a little bit about mediumship before you're connecting with any sort of spirits. There's kind of like a whole set of different things that you need to be dealing with there, but you can always say, oh, I do see your grandma with you or something like that. But don't ever feel pushed to communicate with with spirits if you have not learned much about mediumship yet. Doing this for yourself, you can use all the same techniques. I think it's just maybe a little bit harder sometimes because you are so analytical of yourself. So really try to get your bias out of the way by getting centered before you do anything on yourself. So really wiping the slate clean, really making sure your analytical mind is set to the side. You know, sometimes people just need a good meditation first to do that. Honestly, sometimes it just takes practice, but there's no reason why you can't read your own aura. Now, whether you're reading yourself or somebody else and you feel like their aura is maybe not protected, you can always advise them to put a bubble around themselves to cleanse their aura. Some cleansing techniques are to literally just like get in the shower and pretend like the water is cleaning your aura at the same time. You can do a visualization meditation where you like stand under a waterfall and you cleanse your aura. Honestly, I like to use just verbal affirmations. I think that's enough, but visualizations can sometimes help other people. Sometimes people need more ritualistic things like crystals or oils or something like that. So there's all sorts of things you can do to cleanse your aura, but honestly, it's just whatever you feel guided to, whatever that person feels guided to. So I'm curious right now, in this moment, what color do you guys see around me? Don't get into like anything deeper than that. I don't give permission for you to read me, but what color do you guys see around me? Just a quick practice. And this might be helpful because I have the white background behind me. But I just want to give you guys an opportunity to practice right now and also ask, what does that color mean? And if you get any other symbols, feel free to list it down below. Awesome, guys. I hope that this was helpful. Let me know how auras work for you. If you actually love doing them and you always start a reading with them, or if like it's just not your cup of tea. Remember to subscribe if you want to see more videos. I try to upload every Friday, and then I do go live and give out readings on Tuesdays. But if you subscribe and turn that notification bell on, usually I watch premieres of my new videos with you guys, and that's a great place where you can ask me questions. Also, I have memberships now if you guys are interested. I have memberships for members only lives, and I have some member only videos. So exclusive videos that you guys can get each month from me and sort of dictate like what you want to see. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.